possible to humanize the way we lead businesses. And she's bringing that point of view, starting from discovering yourself, discovering your own truth, so that we can elevate ourselves, we can elevate others, and we can elevate leadership as well, as compared to what is seen today. She thinks that co-creating is key ingredient to develop the gift for those teams that are going to make an impact in the world. And purpose is there at the focus. Thank you, Siiri.
Thank you for inviting. Great, so a warm welcome also from my side. Let me start with the question today, and that is, imagine tomorrow is your 83rd birthday. Why 83rd? Because this is the average life expectancy here in Switzerland. So how would you celebrate? I hope in style, like these guys. And how do you think, when you look back to your life, how do you feel? Like, what did it mean to you to live a truly happy and fulfilling life? The reason I'm asking these questions is that when I realized that there are quite some conscious leaders out there, something what they all have in common is that they positively acknowledge that life is short. So that means life is precious. Let's do something really meaningful with our time here. This matrix from Professor Ken Wilber illustrates pretty well what is going on in today's big organizations. So if you think of a typical leadership development programs, then most focus is on the external side of us as human beings. So like leadership behaviors, competencies, making strategic decisions. And similarly, most of the organizational development efforts are focused on topics such as Agile, Scrum, basically policies and processes. But these companies just ignore that if you think what really drives human action and also change is something that comes from, so to say, from our inner space. It comes from a leader's personal values, purpose, the life experiences they have made. So this is something that is still being ignored. And I have an example from a previous global pharmaceutical company where I worked, and we also had this very traditional hierarchical structure in place, and you can assume a pretty toxic corporate culture. But even there we had leaders who in their area of business, because of their own different personal values, they implemented much more freedom in their teams. They had automatically far more, let's say, positive, engaging team culture in place. So that just shows that we as leaders have so much responsibility in terms of not only our own performance and actions, but also the impact we have on our organization. So before I go into what I call 3 principles of conscious leadership, actually there are 12, but I truly believe that if leaders of today's big organizations, if they would adopt only these 3 principles, they would already radically change in terms of the impact such organizations make to the world. And similarly, the future of its self-managed organizations, I feel they will only work if actually each and everyone will rise to truly be an authentic leader. So let's get started. I wrote them in an iPhone, so each of you can also, while I'm speaking, check in with yourself and how much do these apply to you. I am deeply curious about my being, so who I truly am. And now you may say, Siiri, I've done so many tests in my life, so many personality assessments, so what else is there to be discovered? And I can say, based on my own experience, there's still a lot in there. Because if you consider we grown-ups, we have just adopted so many of those beliefs, values, fixed mindsets from our childhood, parents, later from generally society, education, and so on. But now think back, when you install a new program on your computer at least asks you, are you sure you want to install it? Yes or no? So unfortunately, we human beings, we don't have this capability. So that's why many of these values or beliefs get installed in us quite unconsciously. And it's really tricky because later it takes a lot of effort to figure out, okay, so who I really am, like which values truly represent who I am, and which are those where perhaps I've been influenced. And it can even happen to values which perhaps initially seem positive, such as being nice, conforming to others. Something what I had to learn, noticing how much I had picked up some influence from my mom from Estonia, who grew up in a wartime. And of course, in such environment, it was key for your own personal safety, like to say yes or compromise, be nice. But at the same time, if you live in Switzerland in 2020, it's not helpful all the time. So how do the leaders who are truly doing this kind of inner exercise, how do they show up in organizations? Typically, they are courageous, but also vulnerable. So they would share their own personal transformation journey, as well as the failures what they have made in business, maybe also personally, because again, this is something where others can learn from. They don't force, but they offer this kind of safe space for people to figure out who they truly are. And lastly, they truly role model diversity and authenticity. So it's kind of this attitude, I am being me, I let you be yourself, and it doesn't matter how similar or different you are from me. The second principle is all about striving to be at my best. So conscious leaders are not only on a constant learning journey, but they also know what deeply drives them and in what kind of environment can they be at their best. So for example, in my case, it's very important to have a freedom in terms of where, how, and when I work. So you can imagine that working in a corporate environment was not so much fun, always. And leaders, so when they figure out how they function at their best, it automatically triggers the need that actually I want my team, I want everyone around me to be at their best. So great leaders also truly provoke the leadership in others. Also in such organizations, the focus is more on enjoying the process, creativity and growth, and not so much on the results. And finally, what we now also know from neuroscience research, that if people come together in an environment which offers a lot of autonomy and trust, it triggers the so-called happiness hormones in us, which again energizes you to take action and to be at your best. Last one is all about living your purpose. So conscious leaders can answer questions such as, what is my gift to this world? Like, what is this contribution beyond me, what I can offer to all of my stakeholders, or perhaps to the whole society? And also, they don't use it as a marketing slogan, but these are the guys who really wake up every day with this commitment to take action on their purpose. And in many ways, for me, authentic leaders are also similar to surfers. And why? Because even if you follow your heart, it's quite natural that at some point there will be some challenges and obstacles. But conscious leaders, they are present, they are awake, so to say, to catch the wave or ride the challenge. But then again, they return to their inner state of resilience. So they wouldn't go with emotions or extremes too much. Oh my God, what happened to me? So it's more about, again, their capability to remain uninfluenced and see really life as it is, neutral and objective. So now again, these leaders who have figured out their own purpose, for sure they have a trigger also to help others to find their why and support others in living their purpose. And in such organizations, instead of the internal competition or even external competition, you see that it becomes more about aligning the personal and organizational purposes. And now finally, imagine you have founded a global company of, let's say, 50,000 employees. And if everyone shows up on a Monday morning with full excitement, knowing their inner purpose, commitment, and taking action, not only from their mind, but also from their hearts. So what kind of innovation and impact this company can have in the world? There is also more and more research and proof coming out that indeed the more authentic or conscious leaders, they also deliver far better results than traditional companies. But I would say, for me, in the end, it's also not only about the financials, but it's also about the human value add in terms of our own health, the fulfillment, and happiness in our life. So let me finish it with a quote from from my favorite personal transformation teacher, Tian Wimal. So he has said, in the end, it's a question, to die as a possibility or to create. And I hope all of you choose to live a fulfilled life and also create businesses with truly long-lasting positive impact. So that if we would meet again, I don't see anybody here 83 years old, but if we would meet again in our old age, that we all would still have a smile on our face. Thank you.